opinions and views expressed in the following program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
And hello, everybody. Welcome inside a Friday episode of Running Point on ysnlive.com. Brought to you, as always, by our good friends over at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. They go the extra mile for you, so we try to do the same here on this show every single day. One of the ways we do that is having player profiles on the show, whether they be pre-recorded or, like today, a live guest. And I am very proud to introduce our live guest today. It is the ace from Canfield, who has been just a delight to watch as a softball fan for the last several years at Canfield into her senior year. Melina Toth, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So before we dive into, your senior year and all the things that are going on this year, we have to talk about this Fitch game that you guys won on Tuesday. It was a big win for you guys. Talk about what it meant to this program to beat that Fitch team that you could, neither team could win last year. You got robbed of kind of a chance to win those games. What did it feel like to come out and finally be able to say that you were able to get on top of one of those matchups this time around?
Yeah, like you said, we had them both times last year and we played them. So this year we really wanted to beat them, and we did lose them the first time we played them this year. But we were able to play at Myrtle Beach and able to get things straight, and it was a lot of fun. Just go out there and be able to beat a team that's been unbeatable.
Right, you're navigating that lineup as a pitcher. I'm wondering from a pitcher's perspective what it's like to try to keep your composure and try to, constantly bring your best 1 through 9 in a lineup like that you don't see a lot in high school softball.
Yeah, they're all really great hitters, really good. So you can't make any mistakes and just have to stay focused the entire time.
When we talked to Coach Kernan before the season and we asked what ways you're growing this year, he always talks about the work that you put in on the offensive side. And in that game, especially a big walk, a run scored, the big hit in the 6th to set up Leah Figueroa's big RBI. What kind of work have you been doing with your bat? I know everyone knows you for your arm and your pitching in the circle, but the offense has gotten even better this year. Talk about the work you've put in to make sure you're a threat on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I didn't really bat my freshman and sophomore year, and so last year I started to bat more, and I really enjoyed it. So this year I really wanted to practice more on that and get good at it. So during the off season, that's what I really worked on a lot, was my hitting and just working with the other girls.
So let's talk about this Fitch team and the roster that it has. Obviously, a lot of returners from last year, but a lot of new faces too that are stepping up big time. What's it been like as a senior leader to see the mixture of familiar faces, but also some new players coming into the varsity fold and doing a lot of big things?
Yeah, well, I'm super excited to be able to play with the seniors on my team this year and the underclassmen coming up. So it's been a lot of fun to be able to play with them this year.
What kind of things have you been doing to try to get the younger players ready for everything that varsity softball entails and all the tough games you guys have? I mean, as senior leaders, it's a good senior class you have. What kind of things have you done to, set up the next generation of Canfield softball per se?
Yeah, definitely just helping, working them with their hitting. If I see something that maybe I think they could work on, I would try to help them with that. Or situational things in the field, help them with that. And just being a leader to them because they're going to be the next leaders for Canfield softball. So
Milena, senior year brings a lot of emotions. It's the last time you're doing a lot of things that you're playing. The last time, against a lot of these opponents that you're playing. How have you been handling all the emotions that senior year brings?
Yeah, it's definitely a little scary trying to like going to college next year, but knowing that I'm going to be playing softball in college has helped a lot. I don't have to say like goodbye to the sport right away, but I've just been enjoying it, having a lot of fun.
Has it sunk in that you're a senior yet? Because it feels like you since you've been playing since a freshman, that you've been at Canfield forever at this point. Has
Mhm.
it sunk in yet that it is your senior year and it's the last go around?
Yeah, it's really starting to now, especially because it's the last semester of school.
How has the senior year affected that last semester of school? And the are you falling for senioritis a little bit?
I'm starting to a little bit.
When you think of all the things that you've already accomplished, is there anything possibly left on that goal board for your personal thing? We'll get to the team goals in a minute, but just you personally that you want to achieve before you graduate Canfield?
Definitely just making a mark for Canfield softball, like and for the community and for the school. I know that, like there was some school records I could like potentially go for, so just working hard to try and achieve those.
And then when we talk about this team, obviously you got to the last game last year. You didn't win that last
Mhm.
game, but you got to that last game, the game that everyone wants to get to. How hungry has that made you to get right back to a state championship and turn that result around this year?
Yeah, a big team goal is definitely be able to make it back to the state championship and being able to finish it this time. We were there last year, so we can be more prepared for this year and hopefully just be able to finish it this time.
How long did it take from the after that state championship for you to just have that drive to say, I'm getting right back to it? I mean, like obviously there was the raw emotions that you felt after losing it, but when did that competitive edge take over to say, okay, we lost it, I'm getting right back to it?
Yeah, I definitely say right away. I just remember like the bus ride home after losing. Like I was already thinking about next year, like how to prepare and how to be better and how to get back there.
With that as a goal that's right in your face on the horizon, how do you also balance that with trying to take everything one game at a time and realizing there's a long season before you get to that point?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult because we don't want to try to jump ahead too much. So just trying to take everything slow paced and focus on the game that we're playing that day or that practice. Just making sure that we're just ready for every game before like the state championship.
For people that haven't been following your career, or maybe they're watching this and learning about you for the first time, I don't know where they've been, but where are you playing next year for softball? Let those new fans know where you'll be continuing your career. I don't want to take that thunder away from you.
Yeah, so I'm going to be playing at the University of Buffalo up in New York.
In the MAC with the
hmm
big boys. What made that a decision? Because a lot of people hear Buffalo and think, well, your weather's going to be even worse than it is now. A lot of people want to escape the Northeast Ohio weather. So I'm interested in wanting to know what was it about Buffalo that made that decision so easy.
Yeah, I definitely liked how I was able to get away from home. It's 3 hours away, but it's also not too far. I can come home if I wanted to in one day and go back. And I actually don't like playing in the heat. So I didn't want to go down south, but I felt like Buffalo was a good place for me. Just really like the coaches and the environment and the school is great.
So you're more of a cold weather softball fan, right?
Yeah.
When you think of the things that you're most excited about getting into that next level and kind of testing yourself even more, because obviously there's a big jump between high school and college softball. What excites you the most about taking that next step in your career?
Yeah, I'm excited to see how well I can compete with all the college players. I know it's a whole different like thing up there. Their batters are much more they're better at pitch selection and all that. So just seeing if I'm able to compete with them right away.
Have you thought about how to tackle like going from someone who's a senior and a leader to all of a sudden starting back at zero and saying you're a freshman again and you have to earn all the stuff that you get right when you're in Buffalo? Have you thought about like what that's going to entail and how you plan to tackle that?
Yeah, I've thought about a little bit how I have to go in there and just restart. I have to fight for my spot once I get in there. I won't just be handed it right away.
Let's talk about your coaching staff here at Canfield and how much they're preparing you for being coached at the next level. Obviously, Coach Kernan has a little bit of experience in the college ranks. What's it been like to be coached by him, obviously, for another year? And how has he helped you, grow as a softball player and as a person?
Yeah, he's helped me grow, and I know he's helped a lot of the girls on the team grow. We'll be at practice, and he'll just say, like, if he'll be like, "Oh, would your college coach let that slide?" And like, it's just like he like prepares us for the next level. So he's just really good in that aspect, and it's just really nice to have a good like communication with him. And yeah.
With Canfield and travel and now going to Buffalo, you're obviously going to be coached by a lot of different people in your life. How's that helped you to be, exposed to different coaching philosophies, different ways of looking at things, and just different ways to be coached?
Yeah, it's nice to be coached different ways. Every coach has like their own way, but just comparing their coaching styles and adding a little bit from each coach has really made me a good player.
When you think of like a perfect coach philosophy that fits your personality and the way that you respond to most, because everyone responds to different style of coaching and everyone needs to be coached differently. What kind of a coach gets the best out of you, do you think? What kind of style gets the most going for you?
Yeah, I definitely would like them to be a little hard on me, push me a little bit because I know in college that's how my coach is going to be. He's not going to be like laid back.
All right, so let's talk about graduating Canfield and looking back on all the experiences you've had, not just on the softball field, but in the school system. You start to get a sense of pride a little bit for Canfield. What makes you so proud that you've been able to represent this school and this community over the last 4 years?
Yeah, I've grown up in Canfield my entire life, so it just feels really cool to be able to represent them. And I just hope to be able to come back and watch some of their games next year.
What's going to be like the one thing you miss the most about this area and this community?
Definitely just like all the people in my grade and especially my friends. I'm definitely gonna miss them a lot. Growing up with them, so.
When you go off to college, you're going to be playing with a bunch of people from different places, different walks of life. They're all going to bring something that makes them unique from wherever they're from. What do you think is going to be something that is going to be unique to you because you're from Canfield? So what kind of things are you going to be taking to Buffalo that say, I'm this way because I grew up in Canfield?
Um, I'm not really sure about that one. Probably just like living in the Youngstown area, like just being able to like share like stories from that.
When you think of, all the memories that you've made with not just the softball team, but this, school and this community, what are some of your favorites? What are some of the things that really stick out that you're not going to forget anytime soon about, the memories you've made at Canfield?
Yeah, definitely our spring break Myrtle trips. We went last year and again this year. Those were a lot of fun and it's a great team bonding. And then this year the seniors took a trip to New York and that was a lot of fun. So I'll definitely remember that for a long time.
All right, so let's have some fun with you with some rapid fire questions because this is our last player profile with you before you graduate. Tears, when you think of other positions you could play, obviously you're a pitcher, but what is in a position that you've never played before that you watch and you think, man, I would like to try to play that position if I ever got the opportunity to?
Definitely catcher because that's the one position I never played, and I feel like it would be really cool to see how it is like on the other side of the plate. And I mean, I'm constantly pitching to my catcher, and I feel like it would be cool to like see like her point of view and like that.
When in the social media world right now, one of the trends is softball, and I've asked all the softball players this so far, is lining every player up that's not a pitcher, having them pitch, and then the audience has to guess who's the pitcher. Obviously, you would be in there as well, and then it'd be kind of a blind thing. What non-pitcher on your team do you think could sell being a pitcher the most and make that a hard thing for the audience to decipher who the pitcher is?
I would probably say Macy Kalina. She's very athletic, and she actually has like during practice, just like when I'm pitching, she would just go next to me and like copy my warm up. So I feel like she would do a good job.
It's does she do a good job of mimicking your warm up?
Kind of.
Yeah, it's there. We know Coach Kernan is a character, so I'm wondering what teammate do you think would be the best at trying to impersonate Coach Kernan?
Um, Probably senior Faith Morel. She's really funny. And our coach gives us a joke almost every practice. And she would be really good at that.
When we talk about hitters, we talk about their walk-up songs. You're the pitcher. You get a walk-out song to the circle. What would that be? What would your walk-out song be? The song that emphasizes your personality in the circle.
I'm not sure, but I feel like I would change it up a bit because I feel like it'd be cool to like walk out to like a different song every time.
Right.
We do try to play music in between innings sometimes, so.
Do you think that your walk-up song for batting would be different than your walk-out song for pitcher? Do you think your personalities or your styles change a little bit when you go from hitting to pitching?
Probably. Yeah, I would say they change a little bit.
We talk about the snacks, the dugout snacks a lot with softball players. What's your favorite dugout snack? If you could have one for the rest of your career and that's all you got to have, what would you pick?
Well, we have a pretty big snack bag in our dugout, and the Airheads are pretty popular. I always get upset whenever the red and blue are all gone, so probably the red and blue Airheads.
So red and blue Airheads. If Melina Toth has one for the rest of her career, that's it. All right. So Buffalo dugout better have Airheads. Let's talk about softball icks. That's another big thing in social media right now. There's always something that gets players to cringe a little bit when they see it on the softball diamond. What's yours?
Definitely if somebody were to play with their hair down. I don't know. I feel like that's like really weird.
Have you seen it? I've never really seen that.
Not really a lot in high school, but in travel, you'll be surprised.
As a pitcher, do you see a lot of hitters? One of the things that I get is like the bats on the cleats. Like, why are you treating your bat that way?
Yeah.
In my mind, you're not going to get hits that way.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about one last thing before you go, and that's going to be your role models and your support system, because you are one. So you aren't able to become a role model without having ones yourself. Talk about the role models you've had, especially early in life, early in your career, that have helped you mold into the role model you are right now.
Yeah, definitely all the coaches that have ever coached me, they got me to the point where I am today. And especially my mom, she's the strongest person I know. And she's just always there supporting me, no matter what's going on.
All right, Melina, before we let you go, we like to give the players the opportunity to thank their support system, take the limelight off themselves and putting on the people in their corner. I'm going to give you the time to do that, as much time as you want, to thank the people around you.
Okay, yeah, I would like to thank all my coaches, my friends, my grandparents, and my parents.
All right, Melina, we thank you so much for taking the time to join us today live on the show. We appreciate it. We wish you the best of luck the rest of the senior season, and we can't wait to talk to you again real soon.
Thank you.
All right, Melina Toth from Canfield, the ace, the one that's been dominating in the circle for the Cardinals the last 4 years. And like I said in the interview, hard to believe that she's a senior. I mean, it's felt like she's been like a 6-year senior at this point because she's been dominating for so long. But it is finally that last year with Melina Toth as a pitcher in Canfield. And I tweeted it a couple of days ago. What an honor it's been as a softball fan. I made the Canfield and Fitch specifically because it was right after that game to see, two Division I softball players go at it in the same area, in the same conference. What a pleasure that's been with Sydney Watts and Melina Toth. But, as a softball junkie and a softball fan in this area, you can't get better. You just can't. I mean, you look at the pitching we have, and it doesn't just stop at Melina Toth. It goes to Sydney Watts. It goes to Gabby Gradishar. All three of those players, Division I athletes in the future. Gabby Gradishar graduating next year and going to Penn State, and same thing with Sydney Watts graduating next year, going to Georgia Tech, and Melina Toth 1 year ahead of them, going to Buffalo next year to play in the MAC, the very good MAC conference right now, by the way. When you look at the MAC, I mean, I know a lot of people maybe scoff at mid-majors, but the MAC softball conference is one of the best mid-major softball conferences in the country. In fact, right now, Miami of Ohio leads the country in home runs hit. They have the home run leader individually with 24 home runs right now. The next highest after that is 16, by the way. So that player from Miami, Ohio, whose name escapes me and it's really bugging me. She's just absolutely destroying the rest of the world right now in home runs this year. There are some players that don't get 24 in their college career, mind you. So, you got Toledo in there, who's a really good softball program. Ohio is always good, always a great program in Ohio. Of course, you have Miami of Ohio, and then Buffalo is always that team that's trying to rebuild and starting to push themselves into the conversation. And obviously, Melina Toth will be a big reason why they're able to do that when she steps on campus here in a couple of months. Can't wait to see what she's able to do as a Buffalo. With that being said, this show gonna be different than most, right? Because we have no games at all from last night. Everything was washed. Usually in these rainy days, we usually find one here or there that maybe be in the eye of the storm, or maybe has a little bit of a opening. They're able to get in a game, but last night, nothing. There was nothing happening. Mother Nature won the day full out. So what I'm going to do today is we're going to have a little TED talk, right? There are some things, women's sports issues on my mind, and I know we usually don't dive into national stuff, but on days like today where we have the time to and we have the ability to, I want to talk about some things that I've been seeing that I have thoughts on, and that's what we're going to do. And then we will obviously try to update you at the end of the show on what games are and aren't happening tonight, because there are more cancellations right now. It looks like the weather, as far as raininess, has subsided for the moment, but the field conditions are what we're looking at today, because everything obviously got pounded last night. So we're looking at field conditions probably today and tomorrow, as we stop the rain for now. Looking at Storm Tracker 21, I don't want to overstep my meteorology bounds. So I want to see if I'm right when I say the rain threat is lowered. Well, there are chances. No, look at the radar. It stopped for the last 2 hours, but looking at the radar on Storm Tracker 21, the rest of the day also looks not fun. A lot of precipitation, a lot of green on that radar on Storm Tracker 21. So obviously, we'll keep our good eye on that. And the Power Hour with DJ Oakley will be at 3 o'clock. And usually by 3, we have a little bit more of an idea of what games are and aren't happening, as Mrs. Figueroa with the Red Heart, with Melina Toth. Obviously, those two work so well in the circle and on the battery, Leah Figueroa and Melina Toth. And not shocked at all that they were kind of the catalyst of that game-winning RBI in the 6th inning Tuesday night against Austin Town Fitch, with Leah Figueroa getting the base hit. Melina Toth's offense in that game was big, and I think as much as her pitching needs talked about, that's why I wanted to bring up her batting. She drew a walk, scored a run, driven in by Kaylee Ortiz. By the way, Kaylee Ortiz, who has stepped onto the scene for Canfield this year, one of those newer players, I should say, with a much bigger varsity role, was the only hitter to get a hit against Cindy Watts in the first game, and then stepped in with an RBI in the second game. Something about Kaylee Ortiz, she was ready to go. She said, I don't care if I haven't seen Cindy Watts that much, I'm going to hit her. And she definitely did that this year. She's given Cindy Watts some problems this year at the plate. So let's talk about some things going on right now in women's sports and my thoughts on it. I am called, this is not self-named, so I'm not trying to, DJ likes to call me the dean of girls sports in the area. And every now and then, I guess I got to back that up by sharing my thoughts on things going on in the women's sports world right now. So we're going to stick with softball first. And one of the big things, getting a lot of tweets and what do you call it now? Because it's on Twitter. Are they still tweets? I'm calling them tweets. A lot of tweets right now. Is this new? It's not a new rule in college softball, but it's a new avenue to enforce a rule that already existed. And I'm talking about being able to review a runner leaving early, being able to go and do that on video review. Coaches come out and ask for a video replay for a runner leaving early and then being called out. If you don't know, softball rules are a little bit different on base running than baseball. If you look at baseball, players are able to lead off get, a good couple of steps off the bag before the pitch is even thrown. And then they, if they're aggressive, they get a big lead off and then go, and that's how they steal. In softball, you steal because you get a lead off, but not before the pitcher releases the ball. So you have to have your foot on the bag before that pitch is released. And once that pitch is released, then you can bolt and go. Obviously, the bases are 30 feet shorter in softball, so that's how they kind of even that out. But this year, the rule hasn't changed. But in college softball, now the coaches can come out and say, I think this person left the bag early. Let's go to video replay and see if she did. And so far this year, it has had major impacts on a lot of big games in the softball world. We've seen home runs get taken away. We've seen game-winning opportunities be taken away because a coach comes out, challenges the rule, and they go in the video replay and they say, hey, you left early, you're out, and that's done. Home runs are taken away. So if you hit a home run, but someone left early before you hit it, they'll go to replay and they'll see they left early. The whole home run is gone. So that 3-run jack that you just hit to win the game out, and if there were 2 outs, sorry for your luck, your teammate left early, game over. And it's really anticlimactic, and I think that's why a lot of fans and former players that did not have to deal with this are really up in arms right now, because they're like, well, she just hit a walk-off home run and you're taking it away because a girl left early by by a fragrance of a second. And I get it, because they've been getting away with barely leaving early forever, right? Because if a softball pitcher, if you leave early here when she's up here, obviously that's obvious, they're going to call it. But if you're leaving when the pitch is down here right before it gets released, technically, there's no way an umpire is going to see that with the naked eye. They have to focus on your bag, your foot in the base and the pitcher, and then fractions of a second go, and you left, at the bottom of the motion before the ball was released, but where the umpire's eye could not see it. But now a video can come in and slow it down and say, yeah, you left before that ball was released. So it's almost like I would equate it to saying, okay, we're going to replay football offsides now, right? Whether you be off the line, which is a big conversation this year when football players were lined up back too far, offensive lineman, or if maybe someone's, helmet was too far over the line. Well, let's just say we can replay that now, right? So if the coaches, after the play is over, can challenge and say, I think that defensive lineman had his hand on the ball, right? Or I think that offensive lineman was too far back from the line. Let's challenge that. It's objective, so you see it and it's there. It's not an objective. It's not a subjective call. It's totally objective. You look at the line, okay, he's in it. That's right. It's a penalty. That play gets returned. So that's kind of what that's the only equivalent I can really, try to grab it to, because it's not pass interference, because that's suggestive, right? You can go in there and talk about whether or not that's pass interference or not. It's not a hard line. He's over the line. He's on the line. Just like this leaving the bag early, it's a hard line. Her foot's off the bag before the ball's thrown. Period. There's no talking about it. There's no did she leave early by the letter of the law? It's it. It's cut and dry, right? My unpopular opinion is that there's no problem with it, because now we're just saying you have to follow the rule, and now there's just a little bit more ways to enforce that rule. And I think by saying that that's not good, but why are we taking that away? We're basically saying, hey, these elite softball players, because let's face it, Division I softball is the only one with the video replay capabilities to challenge that. You could see Division II and III broadcasts. One, they're not universal, so you can't have it everywhere. And two, a lot of their broadcasts are like one high home camera, low quality. You're not going to see if that runner left early before the pitch is released. Not decisively. So really, we're talking Division I power. Those elite of the elite softball players. So we're telling them, you don't have to be a disciplined base runner. You can leave early. That's what. And when you have a problem with this, being this review, being able to overturn it, what you're saying is, we're not holding these elite softball players to the highest standard in the world, which they should be. You should be held to a high standard. You're one of the top percentages of the softball world. You should be able to say, without a shadow of a doubt, I did not leave early. Space running, that's coaching. We're letting these elite coaches that are paid a lot of money in some sense, some universities, to say we're not going to really drive into our kids that they have to stay on the bag until the pitch is released. Because right now, before this review, it was like, hey, stay until it's almost released. They're not going to call you either way, because at some point it's going to be impossible to tell whether you left early or not. And that's lazy. It's lazy coaching to just say, hey, you know what? We can bend this a little bit. And now people are being called on it. Like, no, video review shows you left early. That is against the rules, period. So either you don't like the rule at all and you just want it to be changed and you want runners to be able to leave early, or you have to accept that now we have video review to take it away. I really don't like it. It boggles my mind why people are so upset about this, because I get that it takes away big plays and it's not exactly climactic and it's anti what you want out of a sports event, right? It's not entertaining to see an umpire go to video review and say, hey, that big thing you just watched, that big home run, that walk-off home run that everyone just got excited about, doesn't count. She left early. It's anticlimactic. It doesn't really, no one wants to see that from a fan watching entertainment perspective. But if you're a softball coach, like, stand up and just say, hey, okay, guys, girls, this rule's cracking down, and we have to get disciplined on the base pass. And as softball fans, we have to hold those coaches to do that. Why are we letting them off the hook and saying, you know what, you don't have to coach your girls to stay on the base until the ball is released. We should just get rid of the review. This is stupid. This is taking away from, I've seen people say it's taking away from the game. It's upholding a rule of the game is what it's doing. And it's making sure that people are more disciplined. This is exactly what happened back when they instituted the rule that slappers could not leave the batter's box at all in college softball. You can do it in high school as long as your whole foot's not out of the box, you're fine. But in college, one part of your foot's out of the box, you're out. And when that rule was implemented, it was because a lot of slappers weren't used to it, and a lot of people were just taking like half their foot off the box, out of the box, and they were being called out in droves, especially that first year. Slappers everywhere were being called out of the box, out of the box, out of the box. People were upset about it. But really, in reality, you shouldn't be able to step out of the box, and you're the elite. So we're going to say, hey, you're not allowed to have any of your foot out of the box, because that gives you an advantage. It takes away the outside corner from the pitcher, because now you can reach out there because you're stepping out of the box. We were holding the best players in the world to a little bit of a higher standard, and for a long time, people were upset about it. Now that kind of has died down. People aren't nearly as upset about stepping out of the box anymore. But here's another one where we're saying, hey, we're holding the best players in the country, the elite of the elite, to a higher standard by saying you cannot leave the bag early at all. Period. Not barely early, not early. We will catch you. And we're upset about it. We don't want to hold those athletes to those high standards. And it's almost like the softball world is trying to protect them. Like, oh, they work so hard and they just had that big hit and you took it away because you caught them breaking a rule. We're protecting these athletes with a bubble while we're trying to also propel women's sports to a high level of coverage and exposure and level, right? But we can't have it both ways. You can't have women's sports drive up and also try to protect these athletes like bubble wrap that you don't do at all to the men's game in one shape or way or form. That's a perfect segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which we will right after this break, right? We're going to go into a commercial break here on Running Point. You like that tease right there? We don't get a lot of the opportunities to do something like that here on Running Point, so I had to flex my muscles a little bit. So we'll be right back. We're going to take a commercial break, and we're going to segue right from that protection point into my next point, dealing with women's sports on the national stage. We'll be right back on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
21 News delivers the news as it happens, using the latest technology from where it happens.
Live here outside the Mahoney County.
On air, online,
Wednesday afternoon weather update.
Very dangerous.
and on the 21 News social media platforms.
I'm on the road right now.
21 News, the Valley's only locally owned source for trusted news since 1953.
Craftsmanship to us is 60 years of pride and dedication.
Passed down from generation to generation.
The hardwood floors that your kids take their first steps on.
The solid wood doors you quietly close at night.
The things we create day in and day out are the products that end up turning your house into a home.
At Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, uncompromising quality and craftsmanship built our business.
And it will keep us moving forward for generations to come.
Going the extra mile at Greenwood Chevrolet means we want to take care of the community that takes care of us too.
And we have to work together always. And that's how you stay in business for 40 years.
You know, I love being a helper because when I help somebody, it makes me feel good.
It means a lot that I can make a difference in others' lives.
So I will do everything I can and just being there for them every step of the way.
I want them to know within the first 5 minutes that they could depend on me. That's what going the extra mile means, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Before the lights come on, before the workday begins, before a long day is ended, or it's time to have fun. It all starts with the people at Joe Dickey Electric. From replacing a light fixture in your home to building a substation for your business, no job is too big or too small. The people of Joe Dickey Electric power them all. Joe Dickey Electric, over 60 years of powering the Mahoning Valley.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. It is Friday, April 12th, and we welcome you into I should say, gloomy Friday. It's not a beautiful Friday. It's cloudy out. It's rainy. It's wet. A lot of spring sports. That's how my body feels about the rain, right? Just get it out of there. Excuse me about that, though, by the way. So a lot of spring sports have been canceled the last 2 days, last 3 days. And it doesn't look like that trend's going to stop today, as we will update you in a little bit about the games that are and are not happening so far in the area for baseball and softball. But first, I teased before the commercial break about a segue into another conversation about the women's sports world right now. And in my last point, when I was talking about the softball rule being reviewed, the review rule in softball, and how we're kind of trying to protect our athletes with bubble wrap and saying, you know, you how dare you make them follow this rule or take away a home run or whatever it may be. You can't do that. Segues right into my next, conversation or talking point about how Caitlin Clark. I want to talk about Caitlin Clark. I know it's shocker. Everyone's talking about Caitlin Clark right now, but I'm going to take a little bit of twist on it. I haven't seen anyone talk about this or this happening right now in the world, in the women's sports community. Caitlin Clark is probably one of the most talked about women athletes that I've ever seen. Like, talked about not just in the women's sports circles, not just on the women's sports broadcast or studio shows, but talked about on every big show that's talking about sports. Every sports talk show has a Caitlin Clark segment. The sports TikToks, the sports YouTube channels, they're all having Caitlin Clark talks, which is awesome for women's sports. But with all that talk, you're going to get differences of opinion, right? You're going to have some people be infatuated with Caitlin Clark and think that she walks on Street of Gold, and you're going to see some people that aren't as quick to say that and say she's awesome, she's great. Well, let's not call her the greatest of all time yet. And then there are some people that you're gonna get the mixed bag. You're gonna get the people that say she's not that great. That is the hogwash, right? But what I've seen in the last couple weeks, the people that are in the one camp, the camp that thinks Caitlin Clark can walk on water and is one of the the best women's basketball player to ever grace the planet, when they hear someone from the media have the opinion she's not the greatest of all time that we've ever seen, not only do they disagree with that, what I see a lot is it's labeled as you're hating her, you're disrespecting her, you're taking away her, dignity, whatever. Like, people are taking that opinion and turning it into like a personal attack. And every thing that's been said in a genuine conversation about Caitlin Clark, if it's not that she's going to go to the WNBA and day one have a huge impact and continue to score 35 points per game, if it's not that, it's immediately labeled as hate and disrespect and throwing shade, which once again, it's not progressive to getting these people to keep talking about women's sports, because why would they? They share their opinion, and which is X's and O's, strictly X's and O's basketball opinion, and it's boom, they're backhanded by you hate her, you disrespecting her. How dare you talk about Caitlin Clark like that, right? You're not going to get people to keep wanting to talk about women's sports if that's your reaction to them talking about women's sports. It's counterintuitive. It's not helping matters at all. They're going to say, well, if that's the reaction to just me saying she's not the greatest of all time, man, I don't want any part of it. And let's just face it, like, one of the big examples that I saw that I was just like, Diana Taurasi went on SVP SportsCenter, which, once again, awesome that SVP is having a feature conversation with two women basketball players that just commentated on the national championship game. It doesn't happen often. It's brand new. Usually it's the women's basketball championship is over. Let's show NBA highlights, right? Now let's talk more about that game with two of the WNBA stars that run our second broadcast. It was almost like the Peyton and Eli, Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi. So let's talk to them about it. And obviously they're UConn people, so I think that heightened people's attention and kind of heightens what are they going to say, because Caitlin Clark just beat UConn. So he was talking to them, about Caitlin Clark and going into the WNBA. And Diana Taurasi, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the quote right in front of me, basically said there are levels to our game, and there is going to be a transition period, and she's not going to be able to come right into the league and do exactly what she's doing in college and blow up the league on day one. She said there are professional women's basketball players that have been playing for a long time, that are competitive, that are competitors, that are going to want to show that they can guard Caitlin Clark, and she's going to have to deal with the next level, the ladder up in basketball. Never said anything like Caitlin Clark sucks. Never said anything like she's not a good basketball player. Just was simply stating that there are different levels of basketball, and she's going to have to deal with the transition from college to pro. That's the gist of what she said. I never heard one disparaging remark about Caitlin Clark's game. Dude, she wasn't even talking about whether or not she was the greatest of all time. It was just, how is she going to do in the WNBA? And Diana Taurasi was basically saying it might take some time. And she even put out, like, if you're great, you're great, and you'll deal with that transition fine. But even the greats, you got to take a grace period. It's basically the gist of what she was saying. But all over social media, what I'm seeing is that saying that was hateful, disrespectful. How dare you talk to Caitlin Clark like that? She's the greatest basketball player we've ever seen. What? I promise you, Caitlin Clark does not need your protection. We're putting these new athletes that are blowing up the world in popularity in women's sports, we're putting them in a bubble and saying you can't talk about them. in anything that's not blowing up with compliments. You can't do it. If you do it, you're hateful. If you dare say one thing that Caitlin Clark's not good in the basketball court, you're being hateful, you're being disrespectful. We can't have it both ways. We can't have women's sports blow up and be super, super popular and keep the bubble wrap on these athletes. We got to let them be talked about. We got to let them be analyzed, critiqued on the basketball court, on the softball field, on the X's and O's. Personal critiques, that we can argue about that. You can't go personal, right? Even when talking about men's sports, these guys don't go personal. They talk about their game very rarely, other than cases of very bad things happening. Do we see these sports personalities talk about the character of guys in a negative aspect? That doesn't happen. So if you're just talking about the game and the X's and O's, and you want to break down Caitlin Clark's basketball and maybe pick out some holes, because every athlete no one's perfect. Everyone has things they want to get better at. You should be able to do that without being destroyed on social media that you're being hateful and disrespectful. I think it's one of these things where it's a darling of the sport right now, and it's almost like she's being treated like she's the savior of women's sports, and we want that to be completely shiny and gold and everything to be perfect with that. And it's okay to have opinions that she's not the greatest of all time. I'm not saying my opinion either way, but it's okay to have that opinion. You're not being hateful if you're saying she's not the greatest of all time. She's not the peak of women's basketball. That's not hateful. It's almost like the LeBron and MJ debate. No one in their right mind is saying because LeBron's not number one, because they think Michael Jordan is number one, LeBron sucks and where we hate him. Saying he's not number one, he's number two, or he's number three, or wherever they put him. He's just not Michael Jordan in that conversation. If they're on that side of the fence, it's not hateful. We've been able to have, for the most part, very civil conversations about whether or not LeBron is the greatest of all time or not. And most of the LeBron fans, they'll argue against you, but they don't scream that you hate him because you don't think he's the GOAT. They don't scream that it's disrespectful. It's not disrespectful. It's just an opinion that says you're really, 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 really good. But in my opinion, you're not the best of all time that's ever played the sport. How is that disrespectful and hateful? Point last, like the bringing it back to the point, women's sports, especially basketball right now, is on a powder keg. It's about to blow up. It's about to blow up in popularity. WNBA has all but 2 of the Indiana Fever games already scheduled for national television. They've moved games to bigger venues when the Fever come to town. They're expecting it to blow up, and I'm expecting it to blow up too, which will be good for every women's sport out there, because when basketball blows up, obviously, hey, what's this other women's sport about? Maybe we should give it a look. Volleyball has a professional league. Softball has professional softball. So hopefully the explosion chain reaction expands to the other sports. When that happens, we have to let a little bit of our tight hold of protection to these athletes go. People are going to want to talk about these athletes. People are going to have opinions about these athletes when it comes to their game. You got to let them talk about it. You got to let them critique them. You got to let them be able to say, I think Candace Parker is the best college women's basketball player, or I think Dan Taurasi, or I think Brianna Stewart, etc., without it being completely attacked and hated on social media because you think that because you're not saying Caitlin Clark is the best of all time, you're hating her. It's just we can't have that anymore. It's detrimental to the growth of women's sports. It's detrimental to the growth of the coverage of women's sports, because a lot of these guys who talk sports all the time are new to talking about women's sports at a consistent basis. And how you treat them when talking to women's sports is going to really determine how much they keep wanting to talk about women's sports. And whether you like it or not, those guys, those personalities talking about women's sports, and it's got to be the men, because the women can talk about women's sports all they want. it's not going to grow the coverage in the sports world, in the sports media world, unless the men also come along and talk about it as well. The men personalities of these shows, and they're starting to a lot. Like Colin Cowherd talking about women's basketball, Undisputed talking about women's basketball, Nick Wright talking about women's basketball. All these, pick your favorite personality. They've had a segment about Caitlin Clark in the last 2 weeks, which they almost never have segments about women's basketball or women's sports on their show at all. How we respond to their takes on women's sports is going to really going to be a factor in determining how much they want to keep talking about it. And if they keep talking about it, good things are going to happen. We're going to get more coverage. We're going to get more exposure in the media. But if they get turned off by that vilifying reaction to just simply saying, Caitlin Clark's not the best of all time, they're going to get turned off by it, and it's going to not shut down, but it's going to slow down the growth of media coverage of women's sports. And as you can grow the sport as much as you want, but the coverage has to come with it, or it's not going to do anything. So keep that in mind. Be a little bit more graceful to all of these sports personalities that are starting to get into talking about women's sports. Let them mess up a little bit. Let them call a rise ball a high fastball. Let them not know what a rise ball is in softball, because they're starting to talk about that sport, and they're coming from baseball, and it's a little bit new. And let them talk about women's basketball. Even if they've never talked about women's basketball before, they're starting to get their feet wet talking about women's basketball. Let them have an opinion without it being blasted on social media. And I promise you, if you give them a little bit of grace and let them talk about it, they'll learn about it. They'll do their diligence. Most of those guys are professionals at what they do. They'll get better at it, and the coverage of women's sports and media will get better because of it. So that's my TED Talk for today, and that's how we're going to spend our day at Running Point, chewing on that conversation. Without further ado, though, let's go into what is happening and what isn't happening tonight. Like I said, we're mainly watching field condition tonight right now. Obviously, rain is forecasted to continue in about an hour, according to Storm Tracker 21, so we'll also keep an eye on that. Baseball, it looks like there's only a few games still standing. Warren JFK at Austintown Fitch Baseball, as of now, has a green light, but it has been moved to a 5 o'clock start. So if you are looking at the original schedule, reminder that it has been moved to a 5 o'clock start, JFK and Fitch Baseball tonight on the turf. Here are some other games that we have not been confirmed that are canceled yet, so they are still happening as far as we know. Liberty at Garfield Baseball. We have YSU Baseball, of course, hosting Milwaukee. Oakland at Wellsville, and then St. John at Fairport. It's not been reported on, at least yet. Softball is a little bit more spotty. We have a handful of games that we haven't been told yet that are canceled. Beaver area and Ambridge down there in PA haven't been confirmed yet. Badger at Wyndham hasn't been confirmed canceled yet. Grand Valley at Lakeside, same thing, hasn't been told to us, at least, that it's been canceled. We're waiting on a call from Pymatuning Valley. Sam Torres was the last to report on that. Said that he's waiting on a call to see if that gets canceled. Edgewood and Howland is canceled tonight. That was one that was hanging on for a little bit, but it is recently canceled, so we go to that one. We still see no confirmation on Jefferson and Lakeview softball. Latonia East at Pemberton Field hasn't been, told to us it's canceled. Liberty at Garfield for baseball and softball haven't been confirmed on that yet. Newton Falls and Madonna and East Liverpool, no confirmation there yet. And Louisville recently canceled, so they are knocked out. They were not read yet on our spreadsheet, but that news came in about 10 minutes ago that Louisville is canceled. So here are all the games that are canceled tonight, just for your information out there. Columbiana at West Branch Baseball has been canceled. South Range at Cardinal Mooney at Scene 1 has been canceled. Every game at Scene. So if you were scheduled to be at Scene tonight or tomorrow, everything at Scene for the weekend has been X'd. So take that for what it was worth. Lakeview and Niles has been canceled. Badger and Wyndham has been canceled. Pine Tuning Valley at Jefferson canceled. Campbell at Champion canceled. Canfield and Struthers at Scene has been canceled. Carrollton at United. Cheney at East Palestine. Edgewood at Howland. That's baseball. Indian Creek at Beaver Local. Jackson Milton Sebring. LeBray Brookfield. Latonia East. Newton Falls Crestview. Springfield Middle Ridge. Warren Harding and Hubbard. Waterloo and McDonald. Here are the softball games that have been canceled. Softball. Camel and Champions doubleheader. South Range at Poland. Canfield at Boardman. Indian Creek at Beaver Local. Jackson Milton at Sebring. LeBray at Brookfield. Lowville at Western Reserve. That game was going to be at YSU. Madonna and East Liverpool. Just got turned around on the spreadsheet. So these are happening literally as we speak, because when I was going over the games that weren't, updated and canceled yet, that one wasn't read. Newton Falls and Crestview. Springfield and Middle Ridge. Waterloo at McDonald. St. John at Fairport. All those games have been canceled. Tomorrow we have some cancellations already coming in as well. The event at Poland with Boardman and Matthews has been canceled. That's softball. Liberty at Middle Ridge softball has been canceled for tomorrow. Every game at Scene has been canceled as well for baseball. Champion and Struthers baseball has been canceled for tomorrow as well. We will keep an eye on everything that's going on. The games that are supposed to be happening tomorrow on the network, though, Ty Bartell will be at Hoban baseball if it happens against Ursuline at noon. I will be in Champion if it happens against Perry at noon. Ty will be at YSU for Mooney and Ursuline if it happens at 7 o'clock. And then he will also be at Fitch at 4 o'clock for softball between Fitch and Brunswick, if that game hangs on as well. So that is your kind of recap of everything that is and isn't happening over the weekend as we know it right now. We will stay as updated as possible. Make sure to go to ysnlive.com/live to see if any of these games stay on today and tomorrow. Reminder, I didn't say it, but if that Fitch baseball game hangs on, Ty Bartell will be down there for Fitch tonight against Warren JFK at Austin John Fitch. So make sure to check out ysnlive.com/live for all those games and updates. And thank you so much for tuning in today. I want to thank Melina Toth for giving us her time and talking to us at the top of the show. We always thank our live guests, especially when they're able to take some time out of the middle of their day to come on live with us. And want to thank you all for watching. And we'll obviously thank Greenwood Chevrolet for being a wonderful sponsor. That has been Running Point today. We will see you